Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Navs Effect podcast. To those who have been listening and watching our recent episodes, thank you very, very much. And if you are a new listener or trying the show out for the first time, much appreciated. So much gratitude. I hope that you guys enjoy this and continue to listen. And by the way, do subscribe, leave a review on Spotify, hit that like button, leave a comment if you can. I mean, it would really, really help. So today it's actually a solo episode. I've been having guests on for my recent episodes, including the movie review we did a few days ago of One Battle After Another. And our last UAP episode actually was with Coach Willie Wilson, who is also an analyst for the UAP games. And he made some pretty good points that came to fruition, should I say, particularly in that UP UE game, and we'll be discussing that later. But anyway, I felt like this was a good episode to record by myself because this will actually be the last Nabs Effect podcast episode in this setup, this condominium apartment of mine that I've been living in for the last 4 years. I am moving officially next week, so the next time you see a Nabs Effect podcast episode, the background will be different. I can't promise it's going to be great right away because I'm still setting it up. I'm gonna try to work on that as soon as possible, but yeah, it's very nostalgic right now. If I can share for a few minutes about the journey of this podcast, I guess this would also resonate particularly to those who have been listening to this podcast, for the last few years. And by the way, thank you so much to the loyal community. The podcast started as a passion project. I had goals for it to turn into something kind of like a business down the line. We're getting closer to that side now compared to where we were when the podcast started. And this place kind of saw it all happen. So, kind of sad that we're leaving, but also at the same time, I am intrigued about what's coming in the future. And I hope many of you have been following the journey of the show, and podcast will continue to do so moving forward. Now, to the UAAP games, we go on Saturday, September 27 and Sunday, September 28. So just to recap, the NU Bulldogs with another dominant win, going 2-0 after a rout of FEU. Then the UST Growling Tigers, speaking of statements, with a very impressive victory against the DLSU Green Archers that many thought would come in as the EC1 seed along with UP for UAP season 88. Well, things are changing. And then on Sunday, first game, UE looked like they would be frisky for a little bit, and then they just wet the bed. Rey Remogat found his shooting stroke. Francis Naruka looked like he could fly. And the UP Fighting Maroons also had a rout. A lot of one-sided game, shall we say, after we had a lot of close games. Only one out of the four games were close, and that was the UST LaSalle game. The final score doesn't even indicate that, but that was actually a tight game midway through the fourth period. And then in the final game of the weekend, Ateneo uses a dominant defensive effort in the fourth period to defeat Adamson and become the first team to go 3-0 in the UAAP. The first time since season 84 in 2022, the first UAAP season since the pandemic, that Ateneo actually has started the season with an undefeated record through three games. Now, while we're at Ateneo, let's talk about them already. Yes, I understand that the three teams Ateneo beat, FEU, UE, and then Adamson consecutively, are the teams they're supposed to beat if they want to go back to being Final Four contenders. And by the way, things are about to get tough for them because next Sunday they face DLSU at MOA, and then they face UP, and then they face UST, and then they battle against NU. So the other perceived Final Four slash finals contenders, Ateneo, is about to take them on. So, needless to say, we're about to find out if Ateneo's championship material or Final Four material. And we only have the games they've played so far to go on. But I think it's fair to say that they've been rather impressive. And I think I'm pretty close to saying that they have championship contender status, or at least the possibility of it. Now, I understand too that the FU game ended up being close and they were down six in overtime and they could have easily lost that and it could have totally changed things. I understand that in the UE game, they collapsed a double digit lead and it ended up being a close matchup with them needing a late shot from Kimani Ladi to save the day. But against Adamson, you saw what Tab was mentioning after the first two games that back then they were winning with talent and a little bit of luck. I think it's fair to say that, especially that comeback against FU. But this game against Adamson, they won with grit, they won with hustle, they won with depth. If you look at the stats, it's a very balanced effort. Kind of like what the Ateneo teams we've grown to from back in the day were like. Divine Adili, 16 points, 6 boards on 70% shooting, 7 out of 10. Jaden Lazo, the other one and done prospect who isn't talked about as much as Lodi or Escobar, 15.6 of 8 shooting, 3 of 5 from downtown, 2 assists, 3 steals. And Espinosa, 10 points. Kimani Lodi, 14 points and 11 shots. And Dominic Escobar, 8 points. Jared Bay, only 3 points, but 6 assists. And most importantly, 0 turnovers. A good game from him, plus 8. Lazo, by the way, plus 24. As a team against Adamson, shot 49%, which I find awfully impressive, given that Adamson has a history under Coach Nash of being a superb defensive squad who likes making opponents play to their style of play. That didn't happen this time. Ateneo also shot 10 out of 21 from downtown, 48%. Crazy effective. 13 out of 17 from the free throw line, 77%. They were out rebounded 40 to 26. However, they forced Adamson to 22 turnovers while they only had 13 turnovers, which means that even if they didn't win the rebounding battle, they were still winning the possessions battle. And they were making the most of their possessions. They were very effective from the field. And again, this is against a talented defensive team. Now, when I watch the UAAP season, and a lot of people like reacting to early games a lot of times, I always say that instead of looking like the best team from start to finish as you enter the final four round, what's most important is peaking at the right time, playing your best basketball at the right time. I first realized this actually 12 years ago, 2013, when that Juno Soler led DLSU squad started the season 3 and 4, and it looked like another lost season. And then they just went undefeated in the second round and cruised all the way to the championship. And it's been similar the last few years too. Last year, remember after UP lost the game to NU at UST, we were wondering if they no longer had. I mean, we weren't super wondering, but there were questions like, "Oh, are they, in tip-top shape?" And then they ended the elimination round strong and cruised to the championship. They should have beaten DLSU in 2 games if not for KQ's heroics. But they won the championship anyway. The year before that, LaSalle was 3-3. Remember the first year under Coach Topex Robinson? Then they swept through the rest of the elimination round, carried that momentum to the finals, and even if they lost game one against UP in that final series, they still won. And then the year before that, season 85, Ateneo didn't look so elite. They were 3-2 at one point. And then they ended the second round strong, beat UP in the final elimination round game, won that final four matchup against Adamson, lost game one of the finals, but still won the series. The year before that, season 84, Ateneo was undefeated for years. UP beat them at the end of the second round. Now, they kind of stuttered a bit there, that final four series against DLSU, but they got the job done. And they still carried that momentum to beat Ateneo in the finals. So, when you play your basketball, is to me in the UAP more important than how regularly you play your best basketball because the season feels like a sprint. It's only a few months in the year, and with all the other sports events happening, you're gonna see a rush to get the UAP schedule done. Now, does that mean that the early wins of Ateneo shouldn't be given so much credit? Not necessarily. But if you look at the history of Tab Baldwin teams, they tend to improve and get better as the season goes by. And in 3 games, you see a little bit of that already. Kinda lost their footing or took their feet off the gas pedal in that first 2 games, which they should have won easily. But here, once they felt the chance to put Adamson down for the count, didn't relinquish it, didn't chill, got the job done, and on the defensive end, too. So if Coach Tab, especially now with these tough tests coming up against the elite teams, can get his boys to at least challenge them, but not necessarily win, and then use those learnings to continue building that momentum in round two on the way to the final four, I see a path where Ateneo can win a championship. And even me, I think it's fair to say that during the preseason, if you guys have been following the podcasts or looking at my social media posts, I've kind of been talking Ateneo up because of the way they played in Asia Basket and because of the talent they added. Kept saying, I think Ateneo is better than people expect. But even I didn't think they'd be good this fast. Again, what matters is when you play the best basketball, when you peak at the right time. But what's scary for Ateneo's opposition is it feels like there's still room for them to grow and improve because we haven't even seen the best out of Sean Tuano yet. This is the first time Espinosa got his shot going. Jared Bahai hasn't shot so well yet. But then also there's Divine Adili on the way up. And the first two games, I think fair enough, they won largely on the talent and shoulders of Kimani Ladi, who is looking like an MVP candidate. But here, he didn't have to go crazy with the scoring. His teammates were willing to step up. He gave the ball up. He's a willing passer, smart player, like Coach Tab said, and he got the job done. And I'm very interested to see how this LaSalle Ateneo game goes. Not only because that Ateneo crowd is going to be ready to give Mason a hard time, and I think that's going to be drama. But also because this Ateneo team lost to LaSalle twice in the Asia Basket tournament in the preseason, but not before they gave LaSalle a really tough time. So I'm curious how they respond come the UAAP. And then after that, UP, UST, and UST looks really good. We'll talk about them more in a bit. And NU also quietly looks like they're getting the job done. They're doing what they're supposed to do. We'll see how it progresses. But if you're an Ateneo fan early on, you kind of like this energy where you're not exactly at having the pressure of being an elite contender, but there's the potential of barging into the top because I think there's more parity this year, this season. The ceiling is higher, and I think you should be allowed to dream more of what this team can accomplish. I know, again, they haven't faced the elite teams yet, but with the way they've been playing, and the way they look and the talent they have and the history of winning their coach and the program has, can anyone honestly say that they're gonna struggle against their upcoming opponents? No. Even if they don't win every game, they're gonna be in competition for every game. And if you give that team with that explosiveness and that talent a chance to beat you in a late game situation, they proved today against Adamson. They can get the job done and they can do it the hard way as well, if required. Now, Adamson, they're 1-2. To be fair, they've faced LaSalle, UP, Ateneo, who I had as the top three after the elimination round in my preseason prediction. So it's not an easy schedule to start with, but it's not like the rest of the schedule is going to be easy as well. They're nearly halfway through their first round schedule. They still have NU and UST, who are going to be very tough. And they're also going to have FU and UE, two teams I think they should beat. So at the very least, I think they should end up with a 3-4 record at the end of the first round. At the very least, that's what I said. And a lot of Adamson fans got mad at me during the preseason again when I said that I think Adamson is going to miss the final four and possibly win only 5 games. That was not disrespectful, in my opinion, to Adamson because I said that they're really good. It was more of the acknowledgement that the rest of the UAP has gotten better. UST, Ateneo, I think NU as well has leveled the playing field with LaSalle and UP, which means that the teams below them might be left behind. I'm not saying Adamson's definitely going to get left behind because we saw like against LaSalle and UP that when they get an opponent to play their style of play, they can hang around with anyone. But sometimes the talent and the size can be overwhelming, like was the case against Ateneo. And I think the final four is not, certain for them. It's not a sure thing. They will have to fight and claw, and they have the potential to do so. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be an uphill climb. And today was an example why. But that Matt Edrolon, I should just say, his shooting stroke is pure. So, so, so pure. Not just the way he releases it so quickly, but also the way the ball just softly and charmingly goes through the net. Man, love it. Gotta love it. Other game, UPUE, to me, this was really Rey Remogat getting the ball and finally getting to do his thing. In my last podcast episode with Coach Willie, he kind of said it, not directly, more indirectly, but he did insinuate that, maybe Coach Gold should let Ray do his thing. Like he let JD do his thing last season. Well, Ray did his thing. From the start, you saw there was an extra effort, extra desire, extra intention from Rey Remogat to shoot the ball every chance he got. When that 4 point play went in, the 3 point shot plus the foul went in, you just felt a change. Even if I was watching it on TV, I felt like something lifted from Ray and UP. And that really propelled them to that run at the end of the first period where they took the lead. Second quarter, they just extended it. They finally looked like the UP of the last few seasons. I'm sure UP fans were happy to see that. And they destroyed UE. And Remogat was chucking it. He was confident. It didn't exactly shoot super efficient from the field. Let's take a look at the stats here real quick. Yes, Remogat, 21 points, but on 16 shots. Nevertheless, more points than shot attempts. That's good. 6 out of 13 from 3 point range, 46.2%, 11 assists, 7 rebounds, plus 13. Vintage Remogat. By the way, I should say that Noruka Dunk also, I thought, woke up the UP energy more when they were kind of sleepwalking. Interesting subplot here, though. Raylan Torres, 2 points. Fortea, 0. 9 minutes for Fortea, 5 for Torres. Abajanos, 11 points in 17 and a half minutes. Decent. Felicilda, 3 points, 9 minutes. Alarcon, 2 points, 17 minutes. This was the first game this season where it didn't feel like the Bullpups boys had control of the ball more or most of the shot attempts, and it was more Remogat deciding it. And it worked for UP. Now, it's not going to work every game. It's not like they found the magic solution because teams can scout this and change their game plan. But you also have to give UP credit or more credit for trusting the rest of the squad. Palanca, 8 points, 16 minutes. Baila, 7 points, 23 minutes. Belmonte, 6 points, 6 minutes. Andres, Briones, Iniguez, Alter, Coronel even a bit. Gianni Stevens, 14 points, 12 minutes, 10 boards. Really decent game for him. They trusted the rest of the team, that they trusted the depth to carry the squad. I said in an episode recently that if UP wants to be the elite team we've seen the last few years for this roster, they need to be a better sum of all their parts rather than individually. But even in that case, you still need someone to kind of be the head of the snake, the key that ignites the engine. And today they let Remogat do that. They gave him the ball, high usage, run pick and rolls, pass the teammates, take pull up shots, with reckless abandon if he wanted, and it worked. Now, granted, UE looks like the worst team in the UAAP. With all due respect to the Red Warriors community, again, I feel for all of you. I would love to see you guys make the Final Four again. I know how much pain you guys have been through, but it's another rebuilding year, and they look like the team in the UAP. And there's a team in the UAP every year where opponents just stack wins against. So UP still has a lot more to prove, especially against elite competition, like we talked about with Ateneo. Can Remogat do this against the Blue Eagles, the Green Archers, the Bulldogs, the Growling Tigers when they face again in the second round? Adamson when they face again in the second round. We'll see. But you have to start somewhere if you're UP after that 0-2 beginning to this campaign. And the way they beat UE is at least a step forward. Now, how big of a step you think that is, it's up to you. It's how much regard you give for UE. But a win is a win. And when it comes down to the standings in the UAP where things can get really tight for Final Four positioning down the stretch, you're going to take every win you can get. Now, NU again, not a lot to say. Like the last time we spoke about them, I didn't actually get to watch this game because I took my off day that Saturday. More on that later. But they did the job that they were supposed to. They were outscored 20-11 in the third quarter, lost their lead, got their bearings back, took control of the game. 29-16 fourth quarter, 184-68. They're the two teams. They're rather the team so far that has won by comfortable margins in their first two games. 15 points against UE, and 16 against FU, a combined winning margin of 31 points. Now, granted, UE and FU might be the two last place squads in the league moving forward. So the question remains for NU, like we have talked many times, when it comes to facing the elite competition in college basketball, can you get the job done? They have the pieces to get the job done. They have the discipline, they have the defense, they have the coaching, they have the size, the heft, a little bit of the shooting, although that still remains a work in progress. They did shoot efficiently against FU though, 6 out of 15. They still do most of their damage in the paint, 40 points in the paint against the Tamaraws. But it's about to get a little more tough for them, and that's a good thing. They face UST Wednesday at UST at QPAV, and then they face UP on October 4 also at QPAV. And then after that, they face Adamson, and then after that, they go up against DLSU, and then they end their first round against Ateneo. So we're finally gonna put NU to the test, and I'm very curious to see how they react. Now, granted, I do think they're gonna do a good job. I think like Ateneo, they're gonna be in all these games. They're gonna keep it competitive, and they're gonna rack up some wins. Believe that they are. Can they rack up more wins than their opponents? That is the big question. But they're gonna be part of it. They're gonna have a role to play in deciding who gets a twice to beat advantage come the end of the elimination round. Okay. So I took an off day on Saturday, like I said. um, I planned it with my friends before the schedule came out. So when the schedule came out, I saw it was DLSU UST. I was like, oh, that's gonna be such a good game, especially after those two teams won their opening game. But it was nice to reconnect with nature. I really enjoyed it, and it was a good recharge. I got back to Manila late Saturday night, early Saturday morning around 1 a.m. And immediately when I went home, I was so sleepy, so tired. I was like, I gotta put on the game. I skimmed through most of the first half, then I forwarded to the fourth period to see what happened. And I think it's just clear to say that UST outplayed LaSalle. UST looked like the more composed squad when things got tight. They looked like the more aggressive team. And Colin Sakoa has absolutely changed everything for UST. He is a rim protector down there in the defensive end. His size and heft will get him buckets in the paint, trips to the free throw line. Shot really well from the free throw line this game too, by the way. He can post up, he has hook shots, and it's only his second game. Think about it. He outplayed Michael Phillips. This was the big, probably MVP versus MVP matchup early in the season. And he outplayed Mike Collins, 20 points and 8 of 15 shooting, 4 or 5 from the free throw line, 19 rebounds. Mike Phillips, on the other hand, 8 points, 4 of 10 shooting, 15 boards, 4 assists, 5 turnovers, 0 out of 4 from the free throw line. And Collins had those two big post up shots against Mike that I thought were the biggest shots of the game in the fourth period. USC has a lot of depth too. Cabanero went for 27 points on 20 shots. Paranada had 9 points and 5 shot attempts. Got to the free throw line 9 times though. Asido, 13 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 6 rebounds. Padrigao, 12 points. Didn't shoot well, 4 out of 14, but 9 assists, 3 steals. Mark Lemit, 3 points. Danting, 2 points. Chrysostom, 5. But the main guys got the job done. And the other guys are always ready to step up when needed, like Asido was. Some games it's going to be Crisostomo. Some games it's going to be Buenaflor. Some games it's going to be Asido. Spreading those corners. Juno Soler is doing his thing with his team. But they're well prepared. And like we mentioned last time, this team doesn't run strict sets. They don't always follow a specific game plan. They play with flow. They play with instinct. They play with what their gut tells them to do. And there are going to be times it's challenging, but when the pieces make sense and they connect together, it looks really, really good. And Collins has been the missing piece that finally put this team together. And he's a better fit for this USD team than Tonkara was last season because he attacks in a different way than Tonkara did that allows guys like Cabanero and Padrigao and Asido and Paranada to do what they do best too. Yes, Collins will ask for the ball sometimes in the post. He'll hold on to the ball, but he'll also get you offensive rebounds. He'll be willing to pass the ball. He will protect the rim. He will allow UST's guards and wings to run because of all the rebounds he hobbles down. And when things get slow and you really need a bucket, you can just dump it down to him. He's a safety net. and a really good and big one too. Imagine playing only his second game in the college level, and he went up against Mike Phillips and won that battle. Mike Phillips, the guy many think should win MVP this UAAP season. By the way, FSAs cannot win MVP awards. They can only win the best FSA award, which I think is absolute rubbish. Um, one of the rules of the UAP I absolutely disagree with. It's competition. Give the MVP award to the best player. Don't make a separate award for the FSAs. I'm not about that. But anyway, back to UST. They're confident. They've been training a lot with True Focus. They're working on their fundamentals, their technicals. They do a lot of team bonding activities. And they're vets. Paranada is in his fifth playing, or rather fifth season. Forsky fifth season. Nick fifth playing year for eligibility. Those are your vets getting a lot of the minutes. And when your vets can take more of the load, the young guys like Lemit, Crisostomo, Asido, Buenaflor, they can just fill in roles and spots and spread the floor and catch and shoot and not have to worry about doing too much. And when you have a Koe who can clean up the mess on both sides of the floor, it changes things. And before the season, one of the reasons I wasn't willing to go all in on USC as a title contender at that point was because I didn't know what their identity would be. Would it be like last season where Fortsky would hold the ball a lot and take off a lot of shots? Would they go to Nick as a penetrator? Would they play through Collins in the post? 2 games in, small sample size, but it looks like a pick your poison situation where they can use different ways. They can run Paranada handoffs with Akowe, and he always finds a way to get Akowe that ball in the slip. They can play through Collins the post. They can play in transition. They can play pick and roll. They read what the defense is giving them, and they adjust accordingly to what can attack the defense. And so far, they played UP LaSalle and won both games convincingly in different fashions, but convincingly. One via blowout, one via a fourth quarter performance that was very impressive. I think 1 to 10, they're the most malleable team in the UAAP. Malleable in terms of they can attack you in different ways, they can defend you in different ways, and they can get their scoring in different ways through different people. Not exactly just with depth or bench production, but rather different ways of attacking the defense. They have, I feel, the most counters right now to what the defense throws at them at the UAAP. And come the final four in the finals, you need to have different tricks in your bag to pull and to attack, especially when things get really tight. Now, I want to see them in more late fourth quarter situations before I call them the best team in the UAP. I want to see how they play against Ateneo, NU, and also Adamson to some degree. But just in performance alone so far, I think you have to give it to them. I think right now, very early, you have to say they've been the most impressive team in the UAP just because of their quality of wins and their quality of play. Now let's see. Let's see if everyone stays healthy. Let's see if everyone stays fit. And the UAP is a grind. It's a grind. Sometimes your mental strength ends up being more important than your physical strength. And like we said, they haven't made the finals since 2015. It's been a while. So even if they do get there, will they be ready? Will they be ready for the pressure? The good news is we have a long way to go before we get there, and we're gonna have a lot of chances for them to earn their reps and earn their stripes when it comes to these kinds of situations. But very impressive UST. I think they're title contenders. I think we can say that. I think we have to say that. UST, yes. Ateneo, I think almost there. NU, once we see them against elite teams, then maybe we can grant them that role too. LaSalle, now they were doing such a good job attacking the paint early. Jacob Cortez, Kian Baclanos getting to the paint, Earl Abadam to some degree, Michael Phillips. They kind of went away from what was working. Once they saw that UST got a rhythm and started being the more aggressive team, they kind of just like let UST flow into what they wanted to do and let UST establish what they wanted to do rather than LaSalle playing its own game. I feel like there's still a question about what fits, who are the best lineups for this team, who are the people Coach Topex trusts the most. Again, we talked about it during the preseason how the safety net of giving Kevin Kimbao the ball when things aren't going great is gone. Now, to some degree, it looks like Jacob might fill that role, but he's not as good as KQ in terms of doing that, and he still needs more help from his teammates, especially when he faces those traps on pick and rolls. But consistency is an issue. And again, just take a look at the stats. LaSalle lost this game by 9. They shot 44.4% from the field. They're starting to look like a team that likes to win an offense where things are going right, but they still haven't learned how to be a shutdown defensive team aside from the press. But they shot 44.4% against UST. UST shot 46%. 3-point shooting, UST was 6 out of 25. Not that great. LaSalle was 9 out of 24. Much better. 37.5%. Rebounding, UST won 48-39. Turnovers, UST turned the ball over 17 times, same as DLSU. Now, LaSalle had 72 field goal attempts, UST had 74. UST had 26 free throw attempts, LaSalle had 21. UST made 19 out of 26 from the free throw line, that's 73%. LaSalle 11 out of 21, 52.4%. UST made 8 more free throws than LaSalle did. Final score, LaSalle lost by 9. Now, this game, definitely not like the finals or the Philoil semis where you can say free throw shooting doomed LaSalle. But it continues to be a trend that needs work. And it did hurt them to some degree in this game. They make some extra free throws. Maybe instead of being tied midway through the fourth, they have a lead that they're protecting. It's interesting too because this team showed qualities of being a come from behind squad in the preseason to some degree, but they're starting to turn into a team where when things are going right, they look very impressive, but when things are going wrong, they sometimes take a while to find the solution. But there's also a chance they still get better as the season progresses. We saw it in season 86, saw it to some degree in season 87 before they ran out of gas late against UP. And I think there's still a lot of room to improve. The pieces like Mason, Kian, Jacob, Phillips, I feel like these main guys are still to some degree starting to learn how to maneuver best with each other. It right now it kind of feels like a your turn, my turn situation. But once they learn how to play more with each other, there's gonna be room to improve for DLSU. This is, however, a wake up call for them. The rest of the league has gotten better, and their margin for error compared to the last few seasons definitely slimmer. Overall, main takeaway, it's way more balanced now at the top of the UAAP. Season 86 felt like this way for a while, but eventually LaSalle and UP ran away with it in the second round that season. Here, I think it's going to be more balanced moving forward. I'm not sure if one team or two teams in particular will separate themselves significantly from the rest. Even so, I feel like in terms of competition on the court, it's still going to be more balanced. And that's a great thing for the league. Really a great thing for the league. Because big picture, it proves that even if we win the recruitment battle, even if you win the off-season battles, as long as you get your team into shape and ready to compete and perform come the actual UAP, where pressure is at its highest and pressure busts pipes or make diamonds, and not everyone is ready to handle it. As long as you're ready and you're mentally strong, you can compete against anyone. Anyway, that was a fun podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, review, subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment. Much love. And to those who have followed this podcast journey from the beginning, thank you so much. We'll still have more to come. God bless everyone. Have a good day.